Let's hear it for the band up here. Come on, put your hands together. I want you to get your Bibles out. I'm not going to hold you a long time today. I'm going to continue in the series, Lessons from the Storm. I want you to turn your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 1, and we're going to get into some stuff that we have today. But I just want to take just a minute. I'm not going to take a long time, but I do want to take just a minute and set it up a little bit. If you haven't been here with us, last week Eric Clark was here, and thank God for the move of the Spirit while he was here and the word that he brought. Before he was here for a couple of weeks, we had been in the middle of this series, Lessons from the Storm. God spoke to me a while back about this, and I started putting it together. And most of us in this room right now, we know what it is to go through a storm in our life. And of course, I don't just mean physical, real, like the clouds roll in and it really starts raining. I just mean things happen in our lives, storms and trials come and fiery things start to happen in our lives. And most of us in this room, we know what that's like to be in the middle of that. Some of us may be in the middle of that right now. And the problem that a lot of times we have, and for me too, is that when we get into it, especially when we get into the thick of it, we start to become afraid that we're not going to come out of it at all, or that we're not going to come out of it okay. We a lot of times when we get into the middle of a circumstance that is trying, we get into the middle of a circumstance that's like a weight on us, and a circumstance that's really stretching us, and a circumstance that really causes us to want to be afraid. When we get into that, a lot of times, especially when we're in the middle of it, we can't see the ending of it, and we can't see the possibility of an ending to it. Even if we look as far as we can see in the distance in front of us, our carnal minds say there's no way. How is it that you're ever going to be free from this? How is it that you're ever going to get out of this? Some of you maybe are going through things with other people. Other people may have hurt you or broken your heart or done things in your life that were wrong. And you know what? That happens. And sometimes, our carnal minds tell us, how is it there's no way that you're ever going to be the same? There's no way that you're ever going to be able to look at them the same way that you looked at them before. There's no way that you're ever going to be able to have a relationship with them the way that you had a relationship with them before. And there's a lot of people in the room maybe now that have situations going on in your own hearts and maybe in your own minds. And when those things go on, we have these situations that are happening kind of between our ears. We really can't say, well, you know what, if I waited out the cold, Brooke gave me a cold a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sort of waiting it out, But when things like that are going on, we can't just say, I'm going to just wait it out. You know what I mean? We can't just say, well, you know what I'll do? I'll go get some, Tylenol, cold and sinus and take it. We don't know how we're going to see an ending to it. And so we become afraid that we're not going to see an ending to it, that it'll never end. We get to this place where we become afraid where we're not going to be the same person when we come out of it. And you know what? I'm going to get into this today. You're not. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And so what I want to do is, we've been through lessons 1 through 3. And we're going to do lessons 4. Lesson 1, I'm not going to get into it. Lesson 1, number 1, just storms will come. They're coming. Listen, I'm not trying to disappoint you. I'm not trying to make you live in fear. Certainly not trying to make you live in dread of the days to come, but storms will come. They're coming to our lives. Things are going to happen that we would have rather not happen my grandma used to say, had we had our druthers. I don't know if anybody else, my grandma used to say, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't do that, Well, these things are going to be coming in our lives that we wouldn't have had come had we had our druthers, Storms will come. Number 2, He is with you in the storm. If we could just perceive Him for who He is, He's with us in the storm. Too many times we respond to the storm. We start crying out and begging God to move. Oh, God, move in my storm. What in the world? When what God's asking us to do and what the Son of God is asking us to do is, instead of responding to the storm, respond to His presence in the storm. Respond to the fact that He's there with you. Even if it's just as tumultuous as it could be, respond to the fact that He's there with you. Number 3, keep your eyes off of the waves. Don't look at your circumstances. If you keep your eyes on your circumstances, I'm going to tell you this right now, it's only going to get worse. When I was younger, I'm young now. I'm super young, really. But when I was younger, I had this job. Does anybody remember Prime Star? It used to be a satellite company called Prime Star. Well, I used to work at Prime Star selling satellite systems. And I remember sitting there because we were, I don't know if you know where Culpeper CPA is downtown, but where that is, there's a little office upstairs above that. And we had these little cubicles up there above Culpeper CPA. And we would sit there and we would answer phones, and they would come and they would bring us all of these little tabs that people filled out to win something. And what that really was is that means we're going to call you and try to sell you something, you know. And so we would sit there and we would call. And I remember there was a big clock on the wall to my left. My little cubicle's right here. And up on the wall to my left, there was a big clock. And I used to just watch that thing. And it seemed like it would never move. Because you just want to leave. You know how, because a lot of you know how that is. You don't want to do anything but leave. And you start thinking, your mind starts turning. I was young then, so it wasn't as big a deal as it would have been if it was today. But your mind starts turning and you start saying, I wonder how could I live life without the money that I make at this job? You know? Because I do not want to do this. This is miserable and terrible. And you call people and they just cuss at you, you know, because you call them trying to sell them stuff. So you start thinking, I wonder how I could make it without this job. And you just watch it. Well, that's what happens. That's lesson 3. Keep your eyes off the circumstances, because the more you watch them, the worse they're going to get. And you're going to start making plans. You're going to start saying, well, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to patch this up? And then what happens is this. We start living this duct tape life. And really, you know what's going to happen is, it might kind of come together for a while. That it will come together for a while. I was talking to our Wednesday night crowd. Our driveway is really bumpy and scary and fun, depending on, you know, what your perception is. It could be fun, you know. But when you come down our driveway, it's like, you know, you kind of do that. Well, our little car that we just zip around in, so we don't have to drive the big, you know, family bus all around everywhere. It's a little Honda Accord, 2002 Honda Accord. Well, the front of it had been busted up. And so, you know, just like any normal, regular person does, I put zip ties on it, you know. I put some zip ties on it to hold it up, and I got some Gorilla Tape. And Gorilla Tape works better than zip ties, if you need to know. Gorilla Tape actually works better than zip ties. But I put some zip ties on there, and I put some Gorilla Tape on there, and it was kind of holding it together. And it did. It held together for a while. But man, that driveway finally the Gorilla Tape's still there. But the driveway finally just got the best of the zip ties, you know, and they just popped off. So I'm telling you this, you know what? For a while, you could duct tape things together, because that's what we do when we look at our circumstances and we put our eyes on what's happening around us instead of on the one that we're supposed to be watching. When we put our eyes on all that, we're going to start making plans, and we're going to start duct taping stuff together, and we're going to start zip tying stuff together, and we might even Gorilla Tape it together. But eventually, those things are going to pop, and those things are going to break, and that duct tape's going to fail, and we're going to be at least, I would say, in the position that we were before, but it'll probably be worse, because not only are you in that position, but now you're in the position with all of the like shreds of duct tape stuck everywhere that you tried to put on it to fix it. You ever try to take duct tape off anything? Go for it. Go for it. I dare you to do it. Somebody's going to come up here after church. Well, Pastor Todd, I took duct tape off and stuff, and it was fine. Well, good for you, okay? I can't do it. I can't get duct tape off stuff. Maybe you need to like teach a class at the college or something. But I can't get duct tape off of stuff. And that's what happens, though. It's the same junk, only now it's got all that crap in it that we put in it trying to fix it, you know? Instead of us just keeping our eyes on Jesus. So those are lessons 1 through 3. Lesson 4. You know, you're worried about the storm changing you. Storms do change people. Storms change us. I want you to look at 1 Peter. We're going to look at chapter 1. We're going to look at verses 6 and 7, and then in a minute we're going to look at verses 8 and 9. But 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 say this. Let's say, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, I want us to start with really a common theme that we find all throughout the Word, and that's this. And listen, if you're a guest today, I want to kind of give you a heads up. It's not like it's... Brooke tells me I'm making excuses. I'm not making excuses. I'm just going to be real with you. I don't kick things over and stuff when I preach. I won't holler too much, but I do want to get the Word in you. I want to get the Word in you so that you can apply it to your life and you can walk it out in your life. So what do we see first in this? We see first a common theme in the Word that we see in several other places in the Word, and that is this, that the trials we see, the storms that we face, whatever fire we're in right now is a reason to rejoice. And never, and we read those scriptures, right? We might even quote those scriptures. I do, we might quote James chapter 1 that says, count it all joy, when various trials come. We like to quote those scriptures when these times come, but do we live like we count those things joy? Do we live like that fire, like that storm, like whatever trial we're in is a reason for us to rejoice? Do we live like that? And really, there's a long answer, but the short answer is no. No, we don't. Most of us, we just don't live like that. But he's telling us right here in the beginning of this passage that just like so many other times when the Word tells us, these storms that you're in, they're a reason to rejoice. Next, he's saying that they're temporary, but I want us to look into that just a little bit. You know what he says? Greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials. He's saying that they're temporary. But I don't just want us to say they're temporary and be like, oh, praise God, this storm is only temporary. And we start stomping around and get somebody to, make a human fence around us and somebody to fan us. I want you to listen before you get there, okay? Because he does say these storms are temporary, but we're going to dig into that a little bit. I want you to think about this. If storms come at all, let me stop before I do that. Who in here believes that God is sovereign? I do. Completely sovereign. I believe that God knows the end from the beginning. I believe that God knows the depths of my heart. I believe God knows all of my strengths and He knows all of my weaknesses. He knows what I need. He knows what I doesn't need. He knows where I've been. He knows where I am. He knows where I'm going. He knows everything that makes me sad. He knows everything that makes me happy. He knows everything that makes me angry. And so we know that we serve a sovereign God. And so if we serve a sovereign God and an all-powerful and an all-knowing God, and we do, if storms come in our lives and He allows those storms to come, when we say they're just temporary, right? But when they come, they must be for something. Because we can't just say, well, God, I don't know why you let this storm come. Maybe you don't, but it's for something. He wouldn't let it come if it wasn't for something. He wouldn't allow these things to happen in our lives if they weren't for a reason. And a lot of you say, well, a lot of it's my own fault. Maybe it is your own fault, but God can always teach you. He teaches me things out of things that are my fault all the time. Some of the best lessons I've learned in my life are things that I learned through things that were my own fault. So when these storms come, they come for a reason. I don't want you just to focus on the fact that they're temporary, because yes, they are temporary, but they come for a reason. And if they come because they're necessary, and they're necessary in our lives. So I want you to think about why. Number one, storms teach us the character and the faithfulness of God. So these storms, let's just be real, all right? We like to get in the scripture and read these storms are only for a little while. They're temporary. We love that part. That's our favorite part when we're in a storm. But the truth of the matter is, God's not allowing this temporary storm in my life to happen just because of the fact that it's temporary, so that when it's over, I can just know that it's temporary, but for a reason. Number one, so that I can know the character of God and the faithfulness of God. And so when you're in the middle of the storm, one of the lessons that we learn when we say storms change people, we get to learn the character of God. We get to learn about the faithfulness of God. And by the same token, storms are a means to make us into the people that we are meant to be. They strengthen us. They even change our mindset about life and about God. Listen, there are things today that if I was a fighting man, I would fight you over. That 10 years ago, I didn't believe at all. Hello, somebody. You know why, though? Because when you go through the fire, it tends to change your mindset about who God is and about what God has for you. When you go through the storms, He's trying to make us into who we're meant to be. And I said this a lot during this series. We're just looking for relief, but relief isn't the end. Relief isn't the end that God's trying to get us to. I'm going to get in just a minute. When I get to the next lesson, we're going to get to one of the ends that God's trying to take us to. But relief is not the end of it. We get to know the character of God, and we get to know the faithfulness of God. The storms that come into our life, they're the things that strengthen us and empower us and make us who we were meant to be from the very beginning. We get to take step by step to grow and be stronger and come closer to the person that we were anointed to be before we were even formed in our mother's womb through these storms that come. And this is why they come, and this is why they're temporary. They come so that we can learn about God, learn who He is, how faithful He is, and His character. We can learn about ourselves. But I'm going to get into a little bit of that in just a minute. Not who we say we are or what we're capable of doing, but who he says that we are and what he's capable of doing in us. We get to learn about that. They're temporary because of that. And if they never ended, we wouldn't get to walk in any of those things. And you know what sometimes happens? Don't get scared, but sometimes the next storm that's coming is a little bit rougher than the last one. Not always, but sometimes. You know why? Because he can trust you more. He got more faith in you because you put more faith in him. In the middle of that storm, he saw who you were because, and listen, I'm telling you, I know that I've said this a lot. There are times in my life, though, that I would never relive. I would never relive them. You could pay me $1 million and I wouldn't relive them. But I wouldn't take $1 million for them either. I don't want to go back and do it again, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I went through it. You know why? Because God taught me about himself in that. God taught me about his character and his faithfulness. God taught me about myself in that. He taught me about how if I just trust him and how if I just believe him, I can become closer to the man that he made me to be. So storms make us people of more genuine faith. And this seems like a common thing. It seems like a simple thing. But if it was so simple, why don't we do it? It's one thing to say that we believe God. Quite another thing to put our money where our mouth is. It's one thing for us to cry from the side of the boat, "Oh, Jesus, I believe that if you called me out there, I could walk on that water with you." It's a whole other thing to actually step our foot outside the boat and try to stand on the water. So storms make us people of more genuine faith. They produce a change in the most important parts of us, the parts that are unseen and the parts that respond to things that are unseen. Storms make us people of more genuine faith. They touch the parts of us that we can't see. Because what do? We always just look at the stuff. What's happening? Why is it happening? How am I going to deal with it? Oh God, what if the sky falls? And we don't know what in the world we're going to do just to get through it. But the real thing that's happening in a storm, if we could ever do it, if I could ever do it, hey, if I can ever do it, I'll try to tell you how to do it, but I still hadn't figured it out yet. But if we could ever get ourselves to a place where we really live by the Spirit and by the things that are unseen, because those really, frankly, those are the only things that count eternally. Those are the only things that really count. And so they produce a change in us, in the parts of us that are unseen. Not necessarily in the parts of us that we can see, but in the parts of us that we can't see. And those parts of us that are unseen, they are the parts of us that respond to things that are unseen. Like the presence of God and the Spirit of God and just the idea of walking in faith and walking by the Spirit. Those are the things that respond. We respond to those unseen things through our unseen things. That's why the Word says that our deep cries to deep. And so what we're doing is we're responding to unseen things from a place in us that is unseen. It produces change there. A lot of times we're only looking for the material results that are produced by weathering the storm. And those things matter very little if they matter at all. But hey, we might as well be real, and I want you to listen to me. Some of us are guilty in this room right now. Most of the time, all we're looking for is just the things that the material results of weathering the storm. We just want to walk outside and walk around the house and see what got tore up. You know what I'm talking about? When the storms come. And that's all that we're thinking about. We're looking at the material thing. Because even those of us who are super spiritual, and even those of us who holler and shout and shake the walls when we pray, even those of us that do that, you know what we want? We just want to see results. We want to see results in our lives. And so we say, God's going to bring me through this, and when I get through this, here's what's going to be A, B, C, D, E. But the real truth of the matter is, none of those things matter. None of those things that we can see really matter. What matters is the change that's produced in here, the change that's produced in my heart, the change that's produced in my spirit. And what happens is my spirit begins to mature through the storm. But even those of us that are the most spiritual, we just look for those physical, those material changes. We like to say, well, when this storm's over, you know what? I'm gonna, if it blows my house down, God's going to build me a bigger one. Maybe not. God might be like, I want to blow the house down. You're too proud of the house. Come on, somebody. I'm not just talking about a house, okay? Because some of you are thinking about houses. This is an example I'm giving you, okay? God might be saying that thing that you're holding so fast to, holding on so hard to that thing and saying, oh God, when this storm is over, I know that it's still going to be standing. God's saying, no, that's what I'm trying to blow down. That's the thing I'm trying to crash in you, because you love it so much and you're so proud of it and you cling to it so much. And so a lot of us in this room, the one thing that we keep praying for God to see us through is the one thing that he wants to be blown over when the storm comes through, so that he can start over in that area. And a lot of us need to just let him. Hey, listen, I got to tell you, I tell people this all the time. God loves you. Let him. Let him love you. Let him love you. Let him love you in your daily circumstances. Let him love you in the midst of whatever fire it is that you're in, because I know what it is. We all know what it is to go through fire. Let him love you in the middle of that. Don't hold on to everything like it's the end of life if you have to let that thing go, because I'm telling you, a lot of times God's saying that is the thing that I need you to let go. There have been things in my life that I had to let go. I didn't want to let go. And you know what? Some of those things are gone forever. Some of those things came right back full circle back into my life, but under the right circumstances. Under the right obedience to God. And so we get to see those things still in our lives, but in right relationship. The reason for the change in us, this is going to surprise y'all. I never preach about stuff like this, so listen up. The reason for the change in us that happens in the storm is never, ever going to be about us. Never going to be about me. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you what right now. A lot of times you're wondering why you keep getting wet and you seem like you're sinking, but really the truth of the matter is your boat, your oars, even your umbrella, it's made out of I, me, mine, mine. Hello, somebody. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all are like, oh no, Jesus. You like stretching your hand up here. You know what I'm talking about. And the reason we can't see the end of our storm is because all we're thinking about is I, me, my, mine. Listen, I'm telling you, right? If you're in, some of you, don't raise your hand if you are, but if you're in the middle of a terrible circumstance right now, you know what I'm going to tell you will help you is when you just start doing something for somebody else. At the very least, it'll take your mind off of the junk that you're going through. At the very least. At the most, God will say, thank you. I've been waiting to release you from this, but I couldn't release you until you got your mind and your eyes off of yourself. So a lot of the times, every time, the reason for the storms that we face are never, ever going to be about us. Our faith is tested by storms to change us, and the change that occurs through the storm has a singular purpose. What does it say up here? The genuineness of your faith being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory. So the change that occurs through the storm has a singular purpose, and that's the glory of God. So if the storm that you're in right now, and I know some people can relate, it really is a shame, but we can relate, so I'm just going to tell you. If the storm that you're in your life right now is just that you're broke, first of all, listen to me, it's only money. I'll tell you what, anybody got some money in your pocket, you take it out and bring it up here. I'll get somebody to go dig around up there in the kitchen and get the lighter. It'll burn up. And then it's gone. But if the storm that you're in your life right now is that you're broke, quit praying that you'll wake up tomorrow morning and a check will be in the mail, or you'll reach in your pocket and there'll just be a wad of money in there. It ain't going to be about you, and it ain't going to be about you getting what you want. It's not going to be about me. It's not going to be about me getting what I want. It's going to be whatever's going to bring God the most glory. God's going to do whatever, if we're faithful to him, he's going to do whatever he has to do in our life to bring himself the most glory. Because from the very beginning, that's why he created us, to glorify him and be in relationship with him. He spent the entire Old Testament trying to come up with rules for people to just glorify him, and that didn't work. So finally he said, I'll send my son so that they can glorify me through him, even though they are not righteous and they don't have what it takes. They can glorify me through the blood that he sheds. Now I want to talk lesson 5. Next week I'll do lesson 6 and we'll be done. Lesson 5, you are stronger than you think you are. Now before we even get into that, I want to say right now, I don't mean stronger in your own strength. This ain't no self-help sermon up here. Listen, if I help myself, I'm just going to help myself further down the toilet. And you know that's the truth. You know, most of us in this room, if we do that. So I'm not talking self-help. We're stronger than we think we are if we put our faith in him. So I want you to listen to this. This is the rest of that 1 Peter chapter 1, this is verses 8 and 9. It says, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Now God has made us with a spirit capable of believing him, even when it doesn't make sense. Now I want you to think about that. God has given us, created us, with a spirit that is capable of believing him even when it doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean that we will, but that means that we have that desire at all times. We have that desire in us. We will always have it, and it'll never be filled until we go after God. That desire to know him, that desire to be in relationship with him, that desire to be fulfilled by him. He gave us a spirit that is capable of believing him over and above our own circumstances, over and above our own lives. And if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't ask us to do it. So just by merit of him saying, I want you to believe me more than you believe what you see, we know that he gave us a spirit that's capable of doing that. Now, our minds, that's another thing. We may not be capable of doing it in our minds. That's why we have to submit our minds to our spirit. But when we are born with a spirit that is capable of trusting God, even above the circumstances that we can see, those tangible things that we can touch. We are born with a spirit that's capable of trusting God, the unseen God. Because I got to tell you, and I know this is a theme that we keep talking about in this series, we trust what we see all the time. All the time we trust what we see. You know how it is? You ever this might be you, but you ever go like somewhere that's got like an escalator, like the moving stairs, you know? Well, when you get to the moving stairs and you want to go up or down or whatever, you know what I'm talking about? I don't know about you, but I'm always like, if you want to catch that step, you know what I'm saying? You're scared if you don't catch the step, you're going to fall. Or you ever been to the airport where the floor just moves, you know? It's not even up or down. It's just a moving floor. Well, I didn't know. Me and Brooke, one thing we talk about all the time, anytime we fly anywhere, is that all the people at the airport, they just expect everybody to know this is how you do at the airport. I've never been here. I don't know what to do, you know. Well, anyway, so with the moving floor, you know, it's just kind of unsure. And so what we did, we just thought, hey, you know, listen, I'm a big old boy from Mississippi. So I thought they built this so I didn't have to walk. You know? So you just put your stuff on there and you stand there. You just look around, and then you notice that is not why they put that there. They put that there so your walking would be faster. You know? So that when you walk, you'll be like double timing because the floor is moving at the same time. But we got on it, and we were just, you know, me and Brooke, we're just a couple of idiots from Mississippi. You know, we're just standing there looking around. Boy, this is nice. We don't even have to walk. And, you know, everybody's running around us. All these, like, jet setters are running around us. You know what I'm saying, though? But we trust what we can see. You see what I mean? We trust what we can see. When we see that escalator going up, we wait until there's a step that's good enough for us to get on before we get on. We trust what we can see, but God made us with a spirit that's capable of trusting what we can't see. If he didn't make us with a spirit that's capable of doing that, he would have never asked us to do it. He wouldn't ask you to trust what you can't see unless he's already put in you what it takes to trust what you can't see and to believe in what you can't see. And so what God is saying is, you're strong enough to do that. You just don't know it. You just don't think it. You're stronger than you think you are. I gave you a spirit that's capable of believing in me. Our strength doesn't come from us. We're completely reliant. You know what? For my righteousness, I am completely reliant on the blood of Jesus. Any spiritual power I have in my life, I am completely reliant on the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit of God. Completely reliant. So I don't want you to think, yeah, you know what, I can get through this and I'm going to make it. And God's saying, I, me, my, I can do this. Even if you put it on the good end, like self-help pep talk, it's still I, me, my. God's telling me I can put it in his hands and I can surrender myself to him and submit myself to him, and he can do it through me, and he's given me what it takes to believe in. Remember just a few minutes ago it said various trials come, various storms roll in, some are mild, some are violent. But even in these storms, He's given us the strength through his Son to rejoice with a joy that cannot be expressed. I want you to think about that. You know, you ever heard that song that said, "Don't wait till the battle's over, shout now"? Anybody ever heard that? Some of you, like, I can tell I don't run off all the old school folks. Sorry, y'all, if you're watching on YouTube, I love you. Send $1,000 seed and God will bless you. I'm kidding. Don't send me your money. That's a joke. But you ever heard that? Don't wait till the battle's over, shout now, you know? Well, that's what God's saying. God is saying to you, you know what? He just told you you're going to go through these storms. You're going to go through these trials. You're going to be tested by fire. It's going to happen. But you know what he says? Even gold is tested by fire. Gold is perishable, and it still comes out. But he's saying you're more precious than that. And so he says you're going to be tested by all of these things. And you're going to go through all of these things. But even in the middle of those things, I have given you the strength, if you'll tap into it, I've given you the strength to rejoice. And not just to rejoice, but to rejoice with a joy that is inexpressible and full of glory. He says even in because you got to say, a lot of times we sing, y'all remember, and again, I know the old school folks, most of them aren't here with us this morning, but some of you are. Listen, I know some old school stuff. I get a bad rap. I know some old school stuff. Y'all remember when we were kids and we used to sing, joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Remember that? Joy unspeakable and full of glory, the half has never yet been told. Anybody remember that song? Well, you know what? We love that, don't we? We're like, joy unspeakable and full of glory. And we're like, ooh, hee-bo-bo-bo. But what does it say right before that? Right before that, it doesn't say it like a chapter before or even up in a paragraph before. Right before that, he says you're going to go through trials and you're going to go through fire and they're going to be temporary, but the storm's coming, the fire's coming, the trial's coming. Now, they didn't put that in any of that song. You know, I can't remember the verse that says, even though you're going to go through hell. You know, we just sing joy unspeakable. But what God is saying right here is you're stronger than you think you are, even in the middle of your storm. I have given you what it takes to rejoice with a joy that is unspeakable and full of glory in the midst of your darkness. Not just because, but even in the midst of your darkness, I've given you what it takes. If you guys will come on and play for me. I'm just about done. And so the last thing that I want to say this morning is this. It's walking by faith and not by sight that brings us to the end that so beautifully and gloriously justifies the means. And what does it say right there at the end? Receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your soul. The salvation of your soul. And so I want you to think about that. When you're going through whatever it is that you're going through, one of the lessons that we're learning, one of the lessons from the storm is we're stronger than we think we are. In Him, of course. We're stronger than we think we are. But I want you to think about it. Even if you take a minute, I'm not real big on this, but even if you take a minute and just focus on the storm and look at what it is, and look at how terrible maybe you perceive it to be in your life, you have to know that there's a Jehovah God who loves you. A Father who just dotes on you. And you know what? In His mind and in His heart, He says the end justifies the means. And so most of us in this room, can we look to that? Can we say the end justifies the means? Even though the means to get to this end might be storms and fire and trials, and even though the means might from time to time be heartbreak and heartache, from time to time. Now, sometimes it's joy, and sometimes it's mountaintop experiences and celebration and jubilation. But even though the means may be the toughest thing I've ever seen in my life, God has already said, God has already promised that the end justifies the means. When we get to the end, you know how it is. You mothers, I use this example all the time. You moms out there, you know how it is. I remember, hey, it's pretty recently, we left church on a Wednesday night, and everybody was like, and listen, me and Brooke have been married 15, almost 16 years. So I know her pretty well. Every now and then she'll throw a curveball and do something nice for me or something. I'm like, oh, who is that? I'm playing. I'm playing. But church was over on a Wednesday night. And people were coming down the hall and they're like, I think Brooke's in labor. And I'm just like, because that's how it is, right? In our family. We're just like, well, we'll see. Because Brooke worked for an OBGYN doctor for years, and one of the most aggravating things to them is these ladies that come in thinking they're in labor 25 times before the baby's born. You know what I mean? And they're like, ma'am, you just have really bad gas. You're going to lay off the, dairy. But she said, the people were like, I think I'm in labor. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I've had some contractions, but I think I'm all right. So you know what we did? We did the obvious thing that everybody would do when you think you're in labor. We went to Wendy's. Right? We're sitting there at Wendy's and we're eating, and you could tell on her face that things were getting a little bit rough for her. And she'll tell you, I kept telling her, what do you want me to do? Because I've learned, you ladies know, it don't take long to train us. I've learned, I'm not going to be like, this is what we're doing, No, don't you do that at my house. I have to make her feel like it was her idea. But I remember saying, babe, what do you want me to do? She's like, I'll be all right. I want to, we may go to the hospital later tonight, but I want to go home and shave my legs. So I said, okay. And so we left Wendy's, headed for the house, and we got maybe about 2 minutes from Wendy's, and she said, you know what? I better go by my mama's house and shave my legs. Because her mama's house is in town. We live way out in the boonies, It's like, I better do that, because you could tell it was getting rough. And then she grabbed a hold of the door of the car and just hollered. And I was like, you know what? We're not going to do the leg shaving. Okay. And I remember we get there, and it's just, we make jokes about it now between us and between the people that were there with us. She'd be laying there and just like an angel. And then she'd go, Jesus, 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 Jesus. Just, and there's nothing I can do. I can come over there and be like, baby, I've got the secrets to the universe. God has revealed the power of life and death to me. And she's like, get out of my face. Right there. Because it's terribly painful, But you know what? We were there and it was miserable for a while, But when that baby comes, nobody even cares. You don't care. She didn't think about any of that. Because what happens is we think that we're going to spend the rest of our lives scarred by the pain that we're in right now. We think we're going to spend the rest of our lives under the weight of the pain that we're in right now, and that is not the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. He's saying when you reach the end, it'll justify the means. You won't care about any of that. You won't care about the pain that you went through when you have the baby in your arms. You just don't care, because then it's just everything's new. And it's like life has begun again. And so that's what God's speaking to some of you in this room right now. Quit living your life like you're going to be under the weight of this pain forever. Because when you reach the end, it'll justify the means. That's just the part that you have to trust Him on, though. We don't get to see it until we live it. We don't get to look down the road and say, this is the goal. I see the finish line. We just have to keep trudging forward and trusting God, even in the storm, even in the fire. Won't you get up on your feet? This is what I want you to do, if you will. I want everybody that will. You don't have to, but everybody that will. I'm not going to embarrass you or anything like that, so don't worry about that. But I want everybody that will to come join me in the altars and just kind of link up with some people. Hold hands with somebody.
I'm Pastor Todd, and I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for stopping by and watching our video on YouTube today. I pray that you saw something or heard something that would encourage you and something that would empower you to walk out the things that God has for you and the things that God has in your life and that would lead you to Him. Also, I wanted to take this opportunity to invite you to be our guest here at Cornerstone. We would so love to see your face here Sunday mornings at 10:30, Wednesday nights for Bible study at 6:30. We have things for your kids and things for the young people, so please come on and bring the whole family out. We would just love to see you here as our guest. So once again, thanks for watching this video. And before I go, please let me tell you that for me and from Cornerstone Church, we love you so much.